Not every path to stardom follows the same script. Some carry the invisible weight of simply becoming themselves in a world quick to judge. Today, we celebrate transgender celebrities who not only transformed entertainment but also touched countless hearts by daring to live authentically. Behind every spotlight lies a story of struggle, sacrifice, and quiet resilience. These aren't just stars lighting up the stage, they're pioneers who changed the culture by standing tall in their truth. Caitlyn Jenner. Proof that it's never too late to live your truth. Not every path to the spotlight is paved with applause. Born on October 28, 1949, the world first knew her as Bruce Jenner, the Olympic decathlon champion who captured gold at the 1976 Montreal Games. To millions, Bruce was an American hero, the very image of strength and excellence. But behind the medals and fame lived another story, one that was quietly hidden away. For decades, Caitlyn carried a truth she felt she could never share. On the outside, she was powerful, admired, untouchable. On the inside, she felt unseen, even by herself. Then came 2015, and with it a moment that would change everything. In an emotional interview with Diane Sawyer, she finally spoke the words that shifted the world's perception. Yes, for all intents and purposes, I am a woman. That raw, vulnerable confession didn't just redefine Caitlyn. It forced America to confront its own ideas about identity, courage, and authenticity. Soon after, she opened her life to the cameras in I Am Kate, showing not the polished image of fame, but the very real struggles and small triumphs of transition. The joy of finally wearing clothes that felt right. The heartbreak of family and friends who struggled to understand. Her story was never about celebrity, it was about wholeness. In her memoir The Secrets of My Life, Caitlyn laid bare the truth, the boyhood she never fully lived, the manhood she wore like armor, and the womanhood that had always been waiting to breathe. Her journey is a reminder for all of us. Whether we're 25 or 75, there is strength in choosing authenticity. Caitlyn Jenner's courage didn't just change her life. It opened doors for conversations that many thought would never happen. And sometimes, those conversations are the ones that change us the most. Laverne Cox, authenticity is power, not a trend. Not every journey to the spotlight begins with acceptance. Born on May 29, 1972, in Mobile, Alabama, Laverne Cox grew up as a young black trans girl in the Deep South, where bullying, exclusion, and misunderstanding were part of her daily reality. Yet even in those difficult years, she carried an unshakable sense of purpose. That determination would one day make her a trailblazer. Laverne broke through to national fame as Sophia Bursett on Orange is the New Black, and in 2014, she became the first openly transgender person ever nominated for a Primetime Emmy in acting. But that moment wasn't just about recognition, it was a cultural shift. It changed how America saw transgender people on screen. Still, her story has never been just about Hollywood. Laverne has used her platform to shine a light on real, urgent struggles, from discrimination in healthcare to the epidemic of violence against transgender women, especially women of color. Through her voice, interviews, and speeches, she has pushed issues once hidden in the shadows into the national conversation. For Laverne, authenticity isn't a passing fad, it's the root of true confidence. She reminds us that living openly, standing tall, and refusing to shrink in a world that insists you shouldn't exist is nothing short of revolutionary. Her journey shows that real change begins with truth, and when truth is met with empathy, it can move mountains. Laverne Cox's life is proof that the boldest thing any of us can do is live without apology. Because strength is not measured by never falling. It's measured by rising again and again as the truest version of ourselves. Gigi Gorgeous, the courage to become whole. Not every path to self-love looks the same. Born Gregory Lazzarato on April 20, 1992, in Canada, Gigi Gorgeous discovered joy in transformation early on. By 2008, she was sharing makeup tutorials on YouTube, drawing in fans who came for beauty tips but stayed for her spirit. Everything shifted in 2013 when Gigi began documenting her transition. Her channel became more than makeup. It became a mirror of truth. She opened up about fear, judgment, and the quiet triumph of self-acceptance. Millions witnessed the moment she smiled at her reflection and, for the first time, saw herself fully alive. Her bravery transcended beauty. She showed the world that transitioning isn't a trend, it's about living your truth. Parents thanked her for guiding them in supporting their children. Older viewers recognized that courage wears many faces, but its impact is universal. Today, Gigi uses her platform to champion transgender rights, insisting on dignity in spaces where it's often denied. Her story reminds us that bravery isn't always loud or dramatic. Sometimes, it's simply the act of being yourself when hiding feels easier. Because in the end, the most powerful glow-up is unapologetically becoming who you were always meant to be. Andrea Pejic, redefining beauty beyond labels. Not every model fits neatly into one box. Andrea Pejic's story proves that beauty, identity, and courage can't be confined by labels. Born on August 28, 1991, in Tuzla, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Andrea's earliest years were marked by war and uncertainty. Her family fled to Australia, chasing safety and a new beginning. But even in that new land, Andrea wrestled with a deeper conflict: the gap between how the world saw her and who she truly was inside. By 2011, she was no longer hidden. Andrea stormed the fashion world, gracing runways in both men's and women's wear with an effortless grace that left designers and magazines spellbound. Her striking androgyny turned her into an international sensation. Yet, beneath the glamour was a young woman searching for her truth. In 2014, Andrea made a courageous decision. She came out publicly as a transgender woman. For her, this wasn't about shocking the fashion world. It was about finally embracing the life she had always dreamt of. "I always knew I was meant to be a girl," she revealed. Transitioning wasn't just her personal rebirth. It forced the entire industry to question its rigid definitions of beauty and identity. Her journey gave voice to countless people who felt invisible, proving that elegance isn't stitched into fabric or dictated by labels. It radiates from within, from living boldly as your truest self. Andrea showed the world that sometimes the most powerful transformation isn't about becoming someone new. It's about finally becoming who you were destined to be all along. Janet Mock, rewriting the story with honesty. Not every powerful voice echoes from a stage or a spotlight. Some rise from struggle, from silence, and from the courage to tell the truth. Janet Mock, born on March 10, 1983, in Hawaii, grew up as a young trans girl of color facing poverty, discrimination, and the deep ache of invisibility. Yet even in those isolating years, Janet carried a rare clarity, an inner knowing that her life meant more than the pain surrounding her. In her teens, she transitioned, and from that choice forward, she began building not just a life, but a legacy rooted in truth. In 2014, she released her groundbreaking memoir, Redefining Realness, a raw, graceful account of her journey, from childhood hardships to the liberation of becoming herself. But Janet's story was never just about being transgender. It was about survival, identity, and finding one's voice in a world determined to silence it. She didn't stop at the page. Janet broke barriers in television as a writer, director, and executive producer of Pose, the series that brought New York's ballroom culture and the lives of Black and Latinx trans women into America's living rooms with dignity, beauty, and humanity. She made history as the first trans woman of color hired as a writer for a major TV series, proving that visibility isn't charity, it's power. Her journey reminds us that courage isn't about the absence of fear. It's about choosing to live fully despite it. Janet Mock shows us that no matter where you start, you have the power to rewrite your narrative. And sometimes, telling your truth doesn't just change your life, it changes the world. Michaela J. Rodriguez, leading with love, living with resilience. Not every star shines the same way, and MJ Rodriguez is proof of that. Born Michaela Antonia J. Rodriguez on January 7, 1991, in Newark, New Jersey, she grew up with music in her soul, singing in church choirs, acting in community theater, and dreaming of the stage. But it wasn't until she embraced her truth as a transgender woman that the world finally began to see the depth of her talent. Her breakthrough came with Pose, the groundbreaking FX drama set in 1980s New York, where she embodied Blanca Rodriguez Evangelista, the fierce, loving housemother who fought for her chosen family with compassion and strength. With every scene, MJ radiated warmth, resilience, and humanity, turning Blanca into an icon of hope. In 2021, MJ made history as the first transgender woman ever nominated for an Emmy in a major acting category. The following year, she shattered another barrier, becoming the first transgender actress to win a Golden Globe. These milestones weren't just awards, they were powerful statements of recognition, visibility, and progress. But MJ's story doesn't end on the red carpet. Off-screen, she uses her voice as a passionate advocate for trans rights, urging the world to see beyond labels. Her message is simple yet profound. Every person deserves dignity, opportunity, and the chance to shine. Her journey reminds us that real leadership isn't about power or fame, it begins with love. Michaela J. Rodriguez proves that when truth meets talent and resilience is guided by compassion, even the toughest barriers can be broken. Because sometimes, the most powerful stories are the ones brave enough to tell the truth out loud. Do you want me to make this version shorter and more punchy for a video narration, or longer and more poetic for a written article/biography? Dominique Jackson, standing tall against the storm. Not every queen begins life in a palace. Dominique Jackson was born in Tobago, where from an early age, she knew she was different. Her truth was crystal clear to her, but it was denied, rejected, and even punished by those around her. Hungry for acceptance and a place to belong, Dominique left everything behind as a teenager and moved to the United States. She hoped for a fresh start, but instead found herself facing homelessness, rejection, and a loneliness so crushing it nearly broke her spirit. And yet, in the darkest shadows, she discovered light. That light came from New York's ballroom scene, a world where she wasn't just tolerated, but celebrated. Her statuesque height, striking beauty, and undeniable confidence made her unforgettable. But what truly set her apart was her unshakable resilience. Years later, Dominique carried that same fire onto the screen as Electra Abundance in Pose. On camera, she dazzled with glamour and power, but her performance also revealed something deeper, the raw pain of living in a society that idolizes beauty while punishing authenticity. Off-screen, Dominique's voice grew even louder. She became a fearless advocate for trans rights, speaking openly about dignity, self-worth, and the power of never shrinking to make others comfortable. Her story is not just one of survival, it is one of transformation. Dominique Jackson reminds us that true elegance isn't about flawlessness. It's about rising through storms, standing tall when the world tries to push you down, and refusing to stay invisible. Because sometimes, the strongest people are the ones who were once overlooked, until they chose to rise and shine anyway. Bülent Ersoy, the power of unapologetic grace. Not every legend is welcomed by the world. Some fight their way into history against all odds. Born on June 9, 1952, in Turkey, Bülent Ersoy carried a voice that could silence a room, rich, operatic, unforgettable. She rose to become the nation's beloved diva, the voice of Turkish music. But behind the spotlight was a woman fighting for her right simply to exist. In 1981, Bülent made a choice that would change her life and challenge her country. She underwent gender affirmation surgery, becoming one of Turkey's first public figures to openly transition at a time when society wasn't ready to accept it. Instead of applause, she was met with bans from performing, public outrage, and endless legal battles. Yet she refused to shrink. Draped in bold gowns and dazzling jewels, her voice soared on stage, defiant, breathtaking, and unbreakable. Offstage, she spoke openly about her journey, forcing a nation to confront its own prejudices. Bülent didn't just sing about love and sorrow. She lived resilience. She proved that dignity is never granted, it's claimed. Her life is a reminder that grace isn't about pleasing the crowd. It's about honoring yourself, even when the world cannot understand. By standing in her truth without apology, Bülent Ersoy became more than a star. She became a symbol of hope, for all those who once felt invisible, but chose to rise anyway. Alexis Arquette, living truth out loud. Born on July 28, 1969, In Los Angeles, Alexis Arquette grew up in the heart of Hollywood, surrounded by cameras, scripts, and the glitter of an acting dynasty. From the start, she carved out her own lane with unforgettable roles in The Wedding Singer, Pulp Fiction, and Bride of Chucky. On screen, Alexis was bold, witty, and fearless, an artist who refused to be ignored. But her greatest role wasn't in film. It was in life. In the early 2000s, Alexis publicly came out as transgender, and in 2007, she underwent gender affirmation surgery. At a time when few dared to speak their truth, she stood unapologetically in hers. By doing so, she challenged Hollywood's narrow lens and forced society to see transgender people not as stereotypes, but as human beings, deserving of dignity, respect, and love. Beyond acting, Alexis was a warrior for LGBTQ+ rights. She used her voice to fight back against prejudice, to demand authentic representation, and to remind the world that visibility can save lives. Off-screen, she was magnetic, sharp-witted, loud with laughter, and disarmingly honest. Friends remembered her as a bright light, even when she herself walked through shadows. Her journey wasn't easy. She faced misgendering, cruel criticism, and the exhausting weight of living authentically in an industry built on illusions. Yet she never let hardship silence her. Alexis kept performing, kept speaking out, and kept being fully herself. When she passed away in 2016 at just 47 years old, Hollywood lost a rebel, a pioneer, and a truth-teller. But her legacy still burns bright. Alexis Arquette taught us that authenticity is rarely easy, but it is always powerful. Her courage cracked doors wide open, paving the way for a new generation of transgender visibility in Hollywood and beyond. Isis King, walking into the light. Isis King was born on October 1, 1985, in Annapolis, Maryland. From the very beginning, she carried a quiet truth inside her, a truth about who she really was. Growing up transgender in a world that had little understanding or compassion for gender identity, Isis faced challenges most of us can only imagine. Long before there was visibility in mainstream media, she was already fighting battles of identity and acceptance. By the early 2000s, Isis chose honesty over fear. She began her transition and, in 2007, underwent gender affirmation surgery, a decision that at the time was nothing short of revolutionary. In 2008, she stepped into history, becoming the first openly transgender woman to compete on America's Next Top Model. For millions watching at home, it was the very first time they saw a transgender person celebrated in such a glamorous, unapologetic light. For Isis, it was more than modeling, it was a declaration: I am here. I deserve to be seen. Her presence sparked conversations in living rooms across America, conversations about dignity, identity, and what true beauty really means beyond gender. From that moment forward, Isis became a trailblazer, using her platform to demand authentic representation for transgender people in Hollywood. She modeled for major brands, appeared in powerful projects like When They See Us, and spoke boldly about the violence and discrimination her community still faces. But behind the spotlight, Isis's journey wasn't without pain. She endured criticism, misgendering, and the constant struggle of living her truth in an industry built on illusion. And yet, she never backed down. Friends and colleagues remember her sharp wit, contagious laugh, and fearless honesty, a woman who brought light to every room she entered. Isis King's story is not simply about fame or fashion. It's about the transformative power of visibility, about standing up in a world that too often tries to erase you and declaring that your existence matters. Every time she steps in front of the camera, she carries with her a message of hope, that others like her will feel less alone, more empowered, and more free to embrace their truth. Her journey reminds us of one essential truth: real beauty begins the moment we dare to live as our fullest selves. Gina Rosero, a voice that opened doors. Gina Rosero's story begins in Manila, Philippines, where she was born on October 23, 1983. As a teenager, she found confidence beneath the glow of stage lights, competing in beauty pageants in sparkling gowns that made her feel truly seen. That sense of visibility fueled a dream far larger than the islands she called home. At just 17, Gina left for the United States, chasing the freedom to live openly. New York became her proving ground. In the unforgiving world of modeling, where beauty was narrowly defined and opportunities for transgender women were almost non-existent, Gina's elegance, quiet determination, and undeniable presence pushed past barriers. She signed with Next Model Management, landing campaigns and magazine spreads nationwide. But even as her star rose, her truth was bigger than any photograph. In 2014, Gina stepped onto the TED stage and made a choice that would transform not only her life, but countless others. In a raw, powerful speech, she came out publicly as a transgender woman. Her message was simple yet seismic. We are all here to live our truth and fulfill our purpose. That single moment shifted the global conversation on authenticity and identity. Since then, Gina has become one of the most influential voices for transgender rights worldwide. She founded Gender Proud, an organization dedicated to securing legal recognition and dignity for transgender people across the globe. Her work has taken her from fashion runways to the floor of the United Nations, always carrying the mission of giving a voice to those who are too often silenced. Gina Rosero's journey is one of courage, purpose, and transformation. She shows us that living openly isn't just an act of bravery, it's a force that changes the world. Her life is proof that sometimes, it only takes one person daring to stand in their truth to open doors for thousands more. Monroe Bergdorf, a voice that refuses to be silenced. Monroe Bergdorf was born on September 11, 1987, in London, England. From the very beginning, she lived at the crossroads of identity, mixed race, transgender, and growing up in a society that often refused to accept either, let alone both. As a child, she felt invisible, misunderstood, alone. Modeling became her escape, a way to finally show the world who she truly was. With her striking beauty, Monroe walked runways and fronted campaigns that shattered outdated ideas of who could embody fashion. But unlike many in the industry, she refused to just look the part. She chose to speak the truth behind the image. In 2017, she made history as the first transgender model for L'Oréal UK, a face of their True Match diversity campaign. For a moment, it felt revolutionary, a black transgender woman representing one of the world's biggest beauty brands. But when Monroe dared to speak openly about systemic racism in Britain, calling out the structures that keep black people oppressed, the brand dropped her. Headlines called it controversy. For Monroe, it was simply honesty. Instead of retreating, she doubled down. She transformed pain into purpose, becoming a powerful activist who speaks out not only for transgender rights, but for racial justice, gender equality, mental health, and the urgent need for intersectionality. Her courage gave strength to thousands who had once felt silenced, reminding them their voices matter too. Today, Monroe continues to model, to write, and to speak, never bending to fear, never bowing to corporate pressure. Her story isn't just about being a transgender model. It's about choosing truth over comfort, conviction over approval. Tommy Dorfman, coming home to herself. Tommy Dorfman was born on May 13, 1992, in Atlanta, Georgia. For years, audiences knew her as Ryan Shaver, the sharp, ambitious journalist on Netflix's 13 Reasons Why. To fans, she was a rising star, talented and full of promise. But off-screen, Tommy carried a truth she had yet to share with the world. In July 2021, in a heartfelt interview with Time magazine, Tommy publicly came out as a transgender woman. She explained this wasn't a reinvention, nor a new beginning. It was something far more profound. A return to the girl she had always been. "I'm finally truly myself," she revealed. Simple words, yet heavy with the weight of years spent in silence. Her announcement was met with overwhelming love and support from the LGBTQ+ community, colleagues, and fans who saw in her courage a reflection of their own hidden struggles. Soon after, Tommy began embracing her true self, using she/her pronouns, gracing red carpets in elegant gowns, and radiating a newfound peace. Each public appearance wasn't just fashion, it was a declaration. A declaration of arrival, authenticity, and freedom. But Tommy's journey didn't stop there. Beyond acting, she has become a powerful advocate for transgender rights and visibility. She speaks openly about the importance of recognizing trans women simply as women, no caveats, no exceptions, and calls for spaces where every person can live openly, safely, and authentically. Her honesty about the joys and the challenges of transition resonates deeply, inspiring others to honor their own truths. Tommy Dorfman's story reminds us that freedom isn't granted, it's chosen, step by step, truth by truth. She stands as living proof that when we stop hiding and dare to live openly, we don't just set ourselves free, we light the way for others to do the same. India Moore, redefining visibility with grace. India Moore's story is one of resilience, courage, and unapologetic authenticity. Born in 1995 in the Bronx, New York, their childhood was far from easy. At just 14, they entered foster care after escaping a home where transphobic bullying made survival unbearable. From that moment on, India learned what it meant to fight every single day. Not for fame, not for glory, but simply for safety and dignity. By 15, India stepped into the world of modeling, a space notorious for rigid standards of beauty and gender. But for them, the runway was never just about fashion. Every photo shoot, every campaign was a statement. I am here. I exist. I will not be erased. Their presence alone challenged outdated norms and carved space for those who had never before seen themselves reflected in mainstream media. Their breakthrough came with Pose, the groundbreaking FX series that spotlighted New York's ballroom culture. As Angel Evangelista, a transgender sex worker and aspiring model in 1980s New York, India delivered a performance that was tender, raw, and profoundly human. Through Angel, they captured a universal longing to be seen, to be loved, to be accepted in a world so quick to turn its back. Off-screen, India has become a fierce advocate for transgender and non-binary rights, racial justice, and authentic representation in media. They speak with unflinching honesty about the violence faced by trans women of color, the invisibility of non-binary people, and the urgent need for dignity. Their words cut through indifference with clarity. My existence is not up for debate. India Moore's story is about more than breaking into Hollywood. It's about redefining what it means to live with courage and grace. They remind us that true dignity isn't measured by fame or applause. It comes from knowing yourself, even when the world refuses to see you. Their life calls us to listen more deeply, learn with humility, and honor the simple, radical truth. Sometimes the greatest act of love is letting others be exactly who they are, without question, without condition. Candace Cain, living without apology. Candace Cain was born in August 1971 on the sun-kissed shores of Maui, Hawaii. Even as a child, she was drawn to movement, to the stage, to the pure freedom of self-expression. By the early 90s, she had traded island sunsets for New York City's neon lights, diving headfirst into the city's electrifying drag scene. On stage, Candace was a force of nature. Her choreography was daring, her costumes shimmered like fire, and her presence held the room captive. But beneath the glitter and the spotlight, performing was more than art. It was her way of showing the world pieces of her true self that had long remained unseen. In 2007, Candace shattered barriers and made television history. She starred in ABC's Dirty Sexy Money as Carmelita, a transgender woman entangled in a romance with a powerful politician. For the first time on primetime American television, audiences saw an openly transgender actress in a recurring transgender role. And for millions of viewers, it was their first glimpse of a trans woman portrayed with dignity, depth, and undeniable humanity. She wasn't reduced to a joke or a stereotype. She was a complex, worthy character deserving of love. Off-screen, Candace transformed her platform into a mission. She spoke openly about the discrimination, violence, and isolation trans people endure, but she also reminded the world of their joy, resilience, and right to live unapologetically. Her message was never rooted in bitterness, but in hope and truth. As she once declared, "I knew that living my truth would help others live theirs." Today, Candace continues to act, dance, and advocate, lifting up her community with every performance and every word. Her story is a powerful reminder that authenticity isn't a luxury, it's survival. It's the courage to breathe deeply, love freely, and stand tall in a world that often demands we shrink. Her journey proves that when even one person dares to live honestly, they spark a quiet revolution, changing not only their own life, but the lives of everyone around them. And there you have it, 20 remarkable stars whose journeys prove that identity is far deeper than what meets the eye. Which story struck you the most? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss another untold story from behind Hollywood's glitz and glam. This is Exposed Hollywood, revealing the secrets, the struggles, and the stories they never wanted you to know. Until next time, stay curious, stay bold, and keep watching.